Joshua chapter 5 is a powerful example of God appearing as a man in the Old Testament. In today's video, you are going to see why we know this was God appearing as a man. You are also going to see why this destroys arguments from people who think this was some sort of New Testament invention. And you are going to see how reading the Bible can be fresh and fruitful wherever you are reading in the Bible. So the scene is right after the Israelites have crossed the River Jordan. Like Moses parted the Red Sea so they could walk through on dry ground, Joshua did similar. God told Joshua to take the people through the Jordan River on foot to enter the promised land. As they enter, they are all circumcised. Now they're getting ready to fight battles to remove the people from the land. The first people the Israelites are going to fight are the people of Jericho. But before Joshua leads them into battle, something mysterious happens. And this is going to be where we start our Bible reading today. Joshua chapter 5 verse 13 says, "And it came to pass when Joshua was by Jericho that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there stood a man over against him with his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went unto him and said unto him, Are you for us or for our adversaries?" There's so much in this verse already, but it's easy to imagine. Joshua is a warrior who's getting ready for battle. He is near Jericho, the place he's about to fight with, and he looks up and sees a man, but he doesn't see any random man. Joshua sees a man with a sword, but it's not a sword in his sheath tucked away on his side. Joshua sees a man with his sword in his hand. This is a challenge. This is like walking out of your house and seeing someone in front of you with two fists in the air. You would assume right away this is a challenge, a fight. So Joshua does what any brave warrior would. He runs right up to him and says to him, "Are you with us or with our enemies?" Isn't it interesting? Or it's interesting to me anyway, that Joshua doesn't attack him right away. He wants to know who he is before he takes the next step. It's a good lesson for us to take, even in what seems to be a high charge situation. And Joshua wasn't ready for the man's response, and neither is anybody who reads this. Listen to verse 14. "And he said, Nay, but as captain of the host of the Lord am I now come. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and did worship, and said unto him, What says my Lord unto his servant?" You've got it wrong, Joshua. "I'm not on the side of your enemies, and I'm not on your side," the man answers. "No, Joshua, you are on my side." He said he's the captain, the prince, the ruler, the governor of the Lord's army. God is the ruler of his army. One of God's names in the Bible is Jehovah Sevaot, the Lord of armies. But in the previous verse, the fact his sword is out should remind us of the book of Numbers, the famous story where God opens the mouth of a donkey to rebuke the prophet Balaam. The one with the sword drawn there is the angel of the Lord, the special angel in the Old Testament who's called Jehovah repeatedly. The angel gets prayed to and bears the name of God. This is why this verse in Joshua should not surprise you. Joshua falling on his face should not surprise you. The moment he realized who this was, he acted as he should. Balaam fell on his face too, but it gets even clearer for Joshua. The verse said, "And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and did worship." This word worship doesn't by itself mean this was God. This word here means to honor. It can be for God, but also for men. It's when you put everything together that you know it's God in the flesh. What I've shown you already, but what also comes next? That verse ends by Joshua asking him a question. "What saith my Lord unto his servant?" What should I do? Joshua asks. This is where it gets interesting. If we are not aware yet of the connection here to the book of Numbers with Balaam, the captain of the Lord of hosts takes us back to something most Christians learned in Sunday school: the burning bush. In Exodus, this is where the famous burning bush encounter happens. Listen to the captain's answer in verse 15. "And the captain of the Lord's host said unto Joshua, Loose thy shoe from off your foot, for the place whereon you are standing is holy. And Joshua did so." Like when Moses saw the bush burning but not consumed, the Bible tells us in Exodus, the special angel I told you about earlier, the angel of the Lord was in the middle of the bush. But it also says in Exodus, God was in the middle of the bush. The logic is the angel of the Lord is Jehovah. Moses is then told to take off his shoes because the place he is standing on is holy ground. Joshua gets told the same thing now. Take off your shoes, Joshua, because the place you are standing on is holy ground. And like Moses obeyed, Joshua obeyed. Everything in the Bible points back to something before it to help us understand it. This is not coincidence. With Moses and Joshua, God is showing them and showing us that we get success by him, not ourselves. Any other interpretation leads you to believe God allowed them to pray to, worship and treat the angel as they treat him. This would be blasphemy, to treat anyone not equal with God as God, because God says repeatedly he shares his glory with no one. But the great thing about this passage is it's not over. You have to remember that chapters are not inspired by God. They are added to help people organize the Bible. That means chapter 6 verse 1 is not some new event or story. It is continuing what's happening with Joshua. Listen to what the next two verses in the Bible say after it tells us Joshua has taken his shoes off in front of this man. Joshua 6 verse 1 to 2 says, "Now Jericho was straitly shut up because of the children of Israel. None went out and none came in. And the Lord said unto Joshua, See, I have given into thine hand Jericho, the king thereof, and the mighty men of valor." Joshua takes off his shoes, and then Joshua gets the plan by the Lord to defeat the people of Jericho. The point is the captain getting called the Lord who was right in front of him, or is it the Lord in heaven? Based on the way it's written, you cannot tell. But both options are wide open and not unique. We've seen examples of both several times before this in the Bible. But even if we leave this part out of the story, Joshua, like Moses at the bush, has seen God. But this time, Joshua saw him appearing as a man with a sword. If you want to see another time God appeared as a man in the Old Testament, check out my video on Genesis 18. God bless and thanks for watching.